Hey everyone, Rho here. Today we discuss Abaddon the Despoiler and the Traitor Primarchs. General spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. So Abaddon the Despoiler, Warmaster of Chaos. The man who, in the wake of the heresy, became the new face of Chaos. Of course, this was not an immediate or simple process. The Traitor Legion wars amid the Eye of Terror were devastating, as the betrayers turned against each other. It saw the destruction of the former sons of Horus, and the rise of the newly birthed Black Legion. What Abaddon truly went through in his years of isolation, none can say, but the former first captain that emerged was hell-bent on his new future. That the long war, far from over, had only just begun. And in the following years, through sheer determination, he battered and decimated his way to the position of undoubted leader of chaos, as much as the term can be used at least. The problem, however, when it comes to Abaddon, is that we still have the Traitor Primarchs, beings who, no offense to the Despoiler, are immensely more powerful than him. In the earlier years of the lore, there wasn't really any real issues with Abaddon being the uncontested master of traitors, as the Primarchs were names of myth, the loyal ones consigned to an ancient past, and the traitors, whispered names heard but never seen. Okay, we had the old epic models, but there was no way a demon Primarch was showing up on the 40k tabletop. However then, as the hobby evolved and the Horus Heresy novel series arrived, introducing us to the wonder of the Primarchs in person, we've inevitably seen them return to the current timeline in force. And this has added a certain degree of intrigue and no small amount of wonder on just how the Primarchs and Abaddon feel about each other. How they interact. From Abaddon's perspective, it's very straightforward. He hates and despises the Primarchs. The only thing bigger and stronger than their might is their egos. Abaddon can and will treat with the Primarchs through necessity, but that is it. And really, much the same could be said vice versa. How the Primarchs in turn feel about him. However, we have the very ambiguous knowledge that every Traitor Primarch has bowed to the Despoiler. Now, on the face of it, that seems absolutely incredulous. A normal Primarch was already infinitely more powerful than Abaddon, let alone one further elevated to demonhood. And on top of that, again they have their egos to match. The thought of any of them kneeling to Abaddon just does not make sense, at least to a Primarch fanboy like me. However, there's a few very important things we need to keep in mind. Firstly, we have this information from the Black Legion themselves, so it's hardly an impartial source. Within the Black Legion series by author Aaron Dembski-Bowden, Kion, a former sorcerer of the Thousand Sons, and now one of Abaddon's trusted advisors, states the very interesting quote, "One by one the Primarchs bowed before Abaddon, some willingly, some only grudgingly, and one who had to be brought to his knees. But all of them bowed in the end. Lorgar, Perturabo, Fulgrim, Angron, my father Magnus, even Mortarion, who came closest of all to slaying us through his holy plagues. Now how this all plays out remains to be seen, because I really can't see any Primarch willingly bowing to Abaddon, save possibly Lorgar, and that's simply because he could recognise him as the chosen of Chaos. However, I will say Lorgar attempted to take control of the heresy himself from his brother Horus Lupercal, so even that is a bit of a stretch. However, with that in mind, perhaps we could have a clue related in the old school Black Legion Codex supplement. In there, it was stated that Abaddon visited each of the demon Primarchs, and in turn earned their favour in an exchange. With Angron, Abaddon fought in his gladiator pits, defeating his champions. With Mortarion, he gave him the artifact known as the Hand of Darkness. Magnus refused to give him an audience. Fulgrim granted his favour in exchange for a pure Psyker. To Lorgar he offered opportunity to undermine the Imperium's ecclesiarchy. And from Perturabo, he simply appears to have happily joined the war. As for the Alpha Legion, well, their Primarchs are expected to be dead, so there's nothing to report there. So could this in turn be interpreted as the Primarchs bowing? Well, it's actually very possible. You may have to alter some minor lore here or there, but it could tie up quite nicely. Many of these exchanges could be interpreted as willing or begrudging. Perturabo appears to willingly join the Long War. Angron, you might assume, would be a little unhappy that his champions lost. And with Magnus refusing to grant an audience, he could be the one who is brought to his knees. Which is actually what's expected to transpire, that in some way Magnus will be tricked. Which actually is a bit of an ongoing theme for poor old Magnus. So much for the Cyclops' unsurpassed intellect. And there's also another reference which appears to tie into this reasoning for me as well. For many of the Traitor Primarchs, their attention has been in the Dark God's great game, really from the very end of the heresy. Undoubtedly those dedicated to a specific patron, namely Fulgrim, Angron, Magnus and Mortarion. And we get a glimpse of that in the novel The Lords of Silence, as Mortarion, speaking to one of his sons regarding Abaddon, mentions my duties lay on another plane, giving the feeling that he's got better things to be worrying about. However, he then goes on to say that Abaddon convinced him. He convinced all of us, one by one. He doesn't say beat or humbled. He says convinced. I don't see that as a comment by a Primarch forced to kneel to an Astarte. A Primarch who has been forced to bow before Abaddon, especially from Mortarion. Just go read the novel Godblight to see how proud and self-absorbed the Death Lord has become. He would be absolutely irate if he'd had to literally kneel before Abaddon. I think this is going to be far more figurative than Kion's comment makes out. Anyway, regardless, Mortarion then references, "Then I thought I'd killed him, when he dared come here," which again ties into Kion's comment of Mortarion nearly killing them. It all gives me the sense that Abaddon will indeed go before every Primarch, seeking their support for the war against the Imperium, as the Black Legion supplement said. In this instance succumbing to the plagues of Nurgle, perhaps only then to be saved by Nurgle himself, thus showing Mortarion that Abaddon has his backing. there'll be that trade or barter, which the Black Legion will interpret as Kion said, as the Primarch bowing to Abaddon. But in reality, it's not as literal as it sounds. More what appears to be an agreement to stay out of each other's way, to stop fighting themselves, and fight against the true enemy, the Imperium of Man. And that makes sense when we look at the galaxy as we know it. The traitor legions and their Primarchs, far from working together, or with Abaddon in any real unified way, still as always act completely independently, doing whatever they wish. Mortarion invading Ultramar, Magnus moving the planet of the sorcerers to Prospero, Lorgar now leading his own Shadow Crusade, and so on and so on. So while there's clearly no love lost between Abaddon and the Traitor Primarchs, there's also for the most part no real cooperation either. It's all a bit of a tense balance. The Primarchs seeing the worth of Abaddon's cause, even supporting it in certain situations, however ultimately still remaining their own true masters. Will they bow before the new Warmaster, as the Black Legion would have us believe? Or like me, do you expect it to work out in a slightly different way? One that could possibly be interpreted that way, but also sees the Primarchs absolutely keeping their own independence. As always everyone, what do you think? How do you think Abaddon's relationship with the Traitor Primarchs operates? Do you expect to see them truly bow before him? Or are you more in the opinion like me? Do you feel the forces of chaos should operate as one more often? Do you think the Traitor Primarchs will ever truly be able to put their pride aside? And on the other hand, would Abaddon ever truly be able to trust one of the Primarchs? Or is he too scarred by his past? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.